In 1996, Bill Gates said, "Content is king." And boy, was he right. 3 decades later, it still occupies the throne. For lawyers, law firms, and companies serving the legal industry, content marketing and thought leadership marketing are a must if they want to build their books of business or increase their revenues. Hi, I'm Wayne Pollock. I'm a former Law 50 senior associate who discovered the world of content marketing and thought leadership marketing and hasn't looked back. In each episode of this podcast, I interview lawyers and legal industry in-house marketers who are doing big things with their content marketing and thought leadership marketing. This is Legally Contented. Welcome to episode number 4 of Legally Contented. I'm your host, Wayne Pollock. If we were going to make an analogy about the relationship between big law partners as marketers and TikTok, we would likely be closer to oil and water than we would peanut butter and jelly. There are not many big law partners actively marketing themselves on TikTok. Yes, there are lawyers on TikTok, and most of them are in the direct-to-consumer space, criminal defense attorneys, family lawyers, personal injury lawyers. But not many partners are actively marketing themselves on TikTok. But guess what? I'm talking to one of them in this episode. I'm joined by Michael Murphy, who is a partner at K&L Gates. Before that, he was a partner at Shepard Mullins. We talk in this conversation about Michael's marketing and business development prowess. We talked about how he developed his marketing and business development skills and how those skills developed over time. We talk about his TikTok videos and why he had to pivot to TikTok during the early days of COVID-19. We talk about how that pivot has helped him further market himself and build his book of business. Mike and I go way back. We actually went to high school and middle school together in Philadelphia. It was a treat to talk to him, and I think in this episode, you're going to get an enlightening peek inside the mind of a young big law partner who has a marketing and business development mindset. I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I enjoyed speaking with Michael. Hi, and welcome to Legally Contented. I'm your host, Wayne Pollock. I'm thrilled to be here, joined today by Michael Murphy, a partner at K&L Gates. Mike, say hello and introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Awesome. Well, Wayne, thank you for having me. I enjoy your content online. And so I was excited when you reached out. Michael Murphy, I'm an antitrust competition attorney. I work at a law firm, K&L Gates, out of our Boston office. And I work exclusively with product manufacturers on the design and implementation of distribution strategies, authorization programs, pricing policies, all with really the goal of helping brands get control of their online sales, mitigating online price erosion, removing those unauthorized internet resellers that are damaging brands. We do this work in North America. We do this work in Europe as well as Asia.
Did your practice group exist 15, 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely not. It's funny. I tease when I talk to clients and I say, I wish I had this crystal ball and I knew, hey, when I went to law school, this is what I was going to do. But frankly, my father was a truck driver in Philadelphia. I was first in the family to go to college, more or less law school. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wanted to try cases. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I do that, by the way. I do a lot of litigation as well. But I wanted to be an employment attorney when I went to law school. And I wasn't with K&L at the time, but we had a partner who did a lot of work for Bose Corporation, the consumer electronics company outside of Boston. And literally, I was a first-year associate. And he knocked on my door and said, have you ever heard of eBay? I have the CEO and the general counsel of Bose in my office, and they're talking about this thing called eBay, and I have no idea what it is. Can you help? And that's how I got into this. And I do say I was at least smart enough to know if they were having these issues, they weren't the only ones having these issues. And that's how the practice started.
And I feel like I should disclose here, if there's a sense on this podcast that this is like two old friends chatting, it's because it is. Mike and I grew up together. We went to middle school and high school together and recently reconnected. So you'll feel some familiarity here, some warmth that I think goes to almost 3 decades worth of a relationship. All right, let's talk about your legal career because I appreciate the nice words you said about my content. You're here. I asked you to join me because you're doing fantastic things with your content. You've done a lot of publishing in your career, but you've recently upped your game with videos that you're sharing on social media. It looks like they're TikTok videos that you are obviously putting on TikTok, but also on LinkedIn and some other channels. So I want to hear about your journey after law school. You were an associate and a partner at Nelson Mullins, and then you went after 6 years or so there to K&L Gates. I want to hear about you making partner at Nelson Mullins, your marketing and business development there, and then your transition to K&L Gates, why you went to K&L Gates, and what you're doing, how your marketing and BD efforts began at K&L Gates.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky. When I was a young attorney, I had a mentor who always pressed to me that you're in this industry, you're only as good as your portable book of business. So even when I was a young associate billing 2,400 hours a year, I always was dedicating time to some form of business development, whatever that was. And most of the time, nothing was happening right early on, but it was always on the back burner. It was always something I was focused on. I also think it helped coming from Nelson Mullins, which Nelson Mullins is actually a lot bigger now than it was when I was there, but it was a regional firm based out of Columbia, South Carolina. And I was in the Boston office, which was one of probably our furthest offices at the time. But being a smaller firm, we didn't even have any institutional clients. No one was just throwing work. A lot of people had to go out there and get their work. It was really part of the culture at that firm that you needed to do business development. You were responsible, even as an associate, you were responsible for work and getting your work. At Nelson Mullins, we took the position that the partners were the associates' clients, and you needed to market them to get work on your plate. So it was always something that was embedded, in me. So as I became a senior associate, I think I was a seventh year associate when I made a partner at Nelson Mullins, I had a few $100,000 in business. Was it anything crazy substantial? No, but I think it showed that I had the ability, to originate work.
And that's incredible, because you and I came out of law school around the same time. You graduated Suffolk University Law School in 2007. I graduated Georgetown in 2009. So we're both kind of Great Recession babies in terms of law school graduation. And my time at Deckard, I think, was probably very typical of big law associates. I don't think yours doesn't sound the same. We were talked to about business development, but the rates that Deckard charged, the kind of key practice areas that it had, there was not much of an expectation or even a desire for young associates to go out there and start building books of business. We weren't going to be able to discount our rates. We weren't going to have that kind of latitude. It really was instilled in us: learn the craft, bill your time, do the work that you've got on your plate, and then down the road, think about that. So I think it's a huge advantage that you had someone pull you aside who ended up being your mentor, but someone who said, look, the name of the game is building your book of business. And so often we as lawyers at big law firms or even smaller boutique firms, we don't realize that until sometimes it's too late. I mean, you and I probably know income partners who graduated law school 10, 20 years ago, who don't have equity prospects ahead of them because they're so busy serving clients and serving other partners' clients that they don't have a book of business, and their mobility is limited. Even maybe now during the Great Resignation and the mobility that you see lawyers have at big and boutique firms, I think still having a book of business is like your trump card, where if that's a portable book of business and you have clients who love you and are going to follow you, you have nothing but a green grass and a blue ocean ahead of you. So you had that instilled in you about business development and marketing. Talk to me a little bit about moving from Nelson Mullins to K&L Gates. Was there something about your practice developing that you thought Nelson Mullins might not be the right fit based on client demands or what have you?
Yeah, exactly. I love Nelson Mullins. I thought it was a great firm. The other advantage, Wayne, that I always think about being there was, and especially during the financial crisis, we had a partner who did a lot of consumer finance work. I was literally a second, third year associate, and I was just getting mortgage cases thrown at me. So I was handling cases from soup to nuts. I was doing small claims trials, or in Boston, we have housing court trials and things like that as a young associate. So it really allowed me to just get a ton of experience, a lot of client interaction, which I think also helped me with the business development efforts, so forth and so on. As for why I left Nelson Mullins, as I gave a little description of my practice in the beginning, right? It's a very niche practice in what I do. And especially at that time, no one else really did it. So I was doing a lot of work for a lot of manufacturers and brands in the US. And they loved what we were doing. And they came to, me and said, hey, can you do it in Europe? And Nelson Mullins didn't have any European offices. I mean, I tried to piece it together by getting counsel in Germany and counsel in London and counsel in France. And it just wasn't a good client experience. It became very expensive. It was a lot of time on my end, coordinating, managing, overseeing that I didn't bill for. I didn't get any type of origination credits for. And frankly, it was just a bad client experience. When I started looking, I was looking for more of that global footprint, that global platform. And I went with a group of people at Nelson Mullins, a small group, and we decided on K&L Gates that gave us all that global footprint, some for slightly different reasons, but it allowed us to go to K&L. And now we have a team that does what I do in Europe and Asia, which has just been very great and seamless for the client experience.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to hear that there's actually a true story of someone who said they needed a larger platform and then explained why they needed a larger platform when they lateraled. Because I always read about attorneys lateraling from one big firm to the other, talking about their platform. And I'm like, you're a litigator, you've got corporate people at that old firm. Why do you need the corporate people at the new firm? Or why do you need more offices? But that's a great explanation of that. It at the end of the day, it came down to clients. Like literally, it was a client-driven decision because what you thought you could give to your clients through your service and your philosophy and your counsel wasn't easily replicable by counsel who was aligned with you in Germany or across and elsewhere across the world, but you needed some more consistency, right? And I could see absolutely why the clients drove that decision. No matter how great Nelson Mullins was for you in your practice, the client at the end of the day drove the decision.
That's right. And Wayne, to that point, look, my practice is always follow the clients, right? When you deal with so many clients and you see the needs, that's where we decide where we're going to go, because that's driving the demand and the future demand. And yeah, for me, the platform wasn't about the size of K&L Gates. It was about the geography of K&L Gates, which was much more important to me at the time.
Let's look at how you've been developing your book of business, how you've been going about marketing. I want to obviously steer us toward the videos, but when you were an associate, when you were a new partner, what were some of the things you were doing to market yourself and to get your name out there?
Yeah. So I was always doing some client alerts as things came up, like relatively standard. One thing that I always did was I always went out of my way, and I'm like this in life, but if anyone, a friend reached out with a legal issue, I always helped. Or I always did what I could, whether it was opening up a pro bono file and helping someone here, helping someone there, without any real expectation to get anything back. It's part of it is I just love what I do. And you can probably see that in the way I handle myself and the way I embrace what I do. I'm very passionate about the practice of law, and I love doing it. Even if it was something I didn't know anything about, I love the challenge and trying to learn it and learning as much as I could. Throughout my career, I've even done corporate deals, right? I was a registered lobbyist for a period of time. So I've done a lot of things which I think have really helped me develop as an attorney. Not that I'm an expert on specific things, but I can issue spot, I can flag it, and then I can get somebody who really knows what they're doing there. But from a business development perspective, I never said no to any projects, and I always tried to help people. And it turns out years later, some random people that I helped would come back with, hey, now I work at X company and we need your help. I remember you from 10 years ago. You helped my son with an issue at his school, or simple examples like that. I think has been just very helpful for me in my growth.
It's funny. And you have arguably one of the nichiest of all niches. Imagine what you could do with a law firm if you just were friendly at Little League baseball games and dance lessons and dance classes, what you could do in terms of building a network. Your practice sounds to me, because of the global nature and the kinds of clients that you're helping, sounds like probably a trade show heavy type of and a conference heavy business pre-COVID. Were you out and about across the globe, across at least the nation and across the globe, wining and dining prospects, clients, meeting them? Was trade shows basically a big part of your BD efforts?
Absolutely. The other thing I learned very early on in this game with business development was I worked with a lot of people who would go to the ABA conference or whatever sector they were in. And I never understood it. Like, I never understood, why are you doing marketing with a room full of lawyers? And especially with my sort of niche practice, I don't necessarily market to general counsels or legal teams. I do, but really the focus of my marketing efforts are CEOs, head of sales, head of marketing, e-commerce professionals, right? Because they're the ones who are day to day dealing with the issues that I help brands solve. So yes, most of my marketing is the big trade shows. I've been going to CES every year, SEMA, SHOT Show, PGA Show. We do things in Europe. I've done Asia trips as well to stir up business there. But it's really sort of business people focused, and it was a lot of traveling. And I also do a ton of sales conferences for my brands. So, they're clients, but it's also marketing. When you go there, you spend a few days with them. So travel was a huge part of my practice pre-COVID.
What kind of game plan did you have when you went to these conferences? Because I understand how you could walk around the floor, or you could schedule some meetings with current clients or prospects, but I'm curious, you're going to fly literally halfway across the world to meet people, to be on the ground at these conferences. What kind of game plan did you have and your colleagues have when you went to these conferences?
It's funny. That has developed and changed. I think I have a good plan now, but when I started, I didn't have a plan. Like, I would go and almost walk booth to booth and see if there was somebody that I thought I could help. I would check to see if I knew anyone. But in the early days, I didn't even know many people. But as time developed, I started really developing a plan. And the first part of the plan is the best part for me about the trade shows. And just to set the scene, I work with anywhere between probably 60 and 70 product manufacturers at any given time. So one of the real nice thing about the trade shows is I can fly to Las Vegas and meet with 10, 15 clients from all over the world in a 3-day span and fly back, or Orlando or wherever the show is. One is just client maintenance, meeting up, doing meetings. Sometimes we do training sessions at the shows. To me, that is worth it alone. And then what I try to do at the same time is, and now I do a lot more kind of before the show, where I utilize LinkedIn. I reach out. I don't really do any of the cold stuff anymore where I walk around booth to booth, but then I set up meetings and I set up times. And then when I get to the show, I get the map and I map out everyone I'm supposed to meet with, and I develop a plan, and it works pretty well. And then usually I meet a few new brands too, either through a connection or somebody says, hey, stop by this booth and see Joe, they need your help, or whatever the case may be. The other thing I've done, and you can see with the bow tie here, but that's a newer COVID thing, but I always show up in a suit and tie at the trade shows. And it's funny because it's become a thing where I'll walk by and they'll be like, oh, the suit guy, the lawyer, the suit guy, get over here. I got to ask you about something. And it's become something that I've been known for in the world in which I play.
Well, it's personal branding, and we can get to that in a second, because obviously the bow ties shine through in all of your TikTok videos. What was the nature of the interactions when you would go to your law firm's marketing folks or BD folks, or even your practice group heads in advance of these conferences? Would you ask about sponsoring a conference? Would you ask about sponsoring a dinner or getting support to be able to take out clients for dinner or drinks? How much of your marketing on the ground at these conferences was Mike Murphy powered versus K&L Gates or Nelson Mullins powered?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, I've been lucky that I've always had support from the financial perspective of every firm I've been with. And I think that there's always been an ROI, right, on these shows. It's very rare I go to a show and I don't come back with a new client, for what it's worth. But we've never sponsored, like, I've never asked for a booth, but I've also never have had an issue getting my cost, my marketing and things covered from the firms that I've worked at. But yeah, look, honestly, it's been me, right? It's been me driving it. I go by myself. I don't take a team. It's one of the things I pride myself in the work, where I'm not out there bringing in clients and then saying, and now meet so-and-so, they're going to do the work. I'm heavily involved with everything that comes in. But even I'll get stuff from my clients. Like right now, I have a client that we're representing them in an ITC action. I'm not a patent attorney, but I'm involved. Like I'm on all the calls. Do I bill my time for that? No, because I don't add the substantive value, but I manage the relationship. I manage the litigation, and I just make sure the trains are running on time, to be honest with you.
And I think there's also there's obviously a client service perspective. There's Mike on the phone, Mike on the Zoom. We see his friendly face. We know he cares about us and our matters, but it also gives you a chance, I would think, to always be issue spotting. The more information you have about what clients are going through, even in areas that aren't your bread and butter, it still impacts your client's business issues or client's legal issues. And quite frankly, it gives you inspiration for either more content or cross-selling opportunities. Because if your client mentions something on a call or one of your colleagues mentioned something on the call, and you start thinking, well, gee, actually, there's another client who had something similar. I didn't realize that this was more of a patent issue, or I didn't realize that this was whatever, an administrative law issue. Now you have even more opportunities to build that relationship. So it's not just you on the call to bill some extra time. It's you on the call, not billing time, but listening closely and being there for the client and also issue spotting.
Yeah, absolutely. The cross-selling element is huge. And it's also, it allows me to have the pulse of the industry, whatever vertical I'm in. But it's very rare that one of my clients has an issue and others don't. But it sets me up to be able to ask. I'll give you an example, like supply chain issues I've gotten involved with a lot over the last, couple of years with just the complete mayhem of the supply chain. Chinese tariffs we've worked on for multiple clients because it was a huge issue for one. I got involved and then I started asking other clients and they were like, wait, you can help with that? And then we put a team together and we help with it. So you're absolutely right. Look, I think one thing that some attorneys miss is we're advisors, right? Like we're consultants. We help our brands. We're not just, hey, here's a litigation, go do it. So I don't mind the non-billable stuff to really get to learn and know my clients, because that's what's going to, one, help me add value in not only what I do, but what we can also do more widespread throughout the firm.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic approach because you talk about ROI with the conferences, ROI with marketing and BD. There is sometimes ROI from just sitting and listening and being there for the client. You build some kind of intangible ROI. You're building the relationship and the familiarity, and they like you even more because you're around. But again, you're issue spotting and you're hearing more about their business and their legal issues that you might not have heard but for that call, because you have a practice that focuses on one piece of their business. And obviously it overflows into other pieces, but it doesn't mean you get to hear about it all the time. And I think it's just great because now there's more, like we said, more cross-selling. There's more opportunities for you to hear about a problem and go, you know what, actually, we're a huge platform here at K&L Gates. We have attorneys who can do that in the geographies you mentioned, or we have some niche practitioners who are doing interesting things and are cutting edge in that area of law. Let me introduce you. And again, you're just adding more value to the client, even if you can't bill that client for that 6 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, whatever.
Yep, absolutely. Even with the sales conferences, sometimes I'll have a 45-minute, session where I do training on antitrust or a pricing policy or whatever. So the client will fly me in, not so much of that anymore these days. I'll stay. And they're like, you don't have to stay. And it's like, don't worry, I'm not billing you. I want to stay because it helps me do my job. I do a lot with product distribution and I need to know, like, hey, what are the new products? What products do you care about? What's the marketing plan, right? What are the channels you distribute through? All of that knowledge helps me be more effective at what I do, as well as it gives me insight to what other issues these brands have and what we could potentially cross-sell and help them with.
So you hinted at this, but let's explore this. So you're moving along nicely at these conferences. You're keeping Boston area tailors and dry cleaners well fed with all your suits. And then late 2019, early 2020 hits us and we hear about this COVID thing. And January, February, finally March, for most parts of the country, March 2020 is when COVID hits. What are your first thoughts about your marketing and business development efforts? Obviously, after your first thoughts about making sure everybody's safe and healthy and all that stuff, what are you thinking about BD and marketing at that time?
Yeah, from a BD marketing perspective, there was concern. Look, in the beginning of COVID, there was a ton of uncertainty, right? With law firms, all law firms were projecting they were going to be down like 30 to 40%. No one really knew what was going on. From a personal marketing perspective, I said, I can't do trade shows. I can't travel. What am I going to do? How am I going to stay relevant and stay on the minds of clients and develop new clients? And it was challenging, and I didn't know what to do at first. And I'm not a huge social media guy in my personal life, to be very honest with you. I've been on LinkedIn. I was on LinkedIn. I was somewhat active where like I'd post an article or things like that, but I wasn't doing a ton. And I think what did it for me, I was watching Saturday Night Live one night, and Elizabeth Warren was on, and she did this switch. It was this TikTok trend where they flipped the switch. She's wearing an outfit, and one of the Saturday Night Live people are wearing an outfit. They flip the light, goes off, it goes back on, and then they change clothes. And I don't know why, I don't know how, it popped into my head, oh my God, I could do a switch video because COVID has really flipped the switch right in the area of what I do. It's really transferring a lot of these sales from brick and mortar sales to e-commerce sales. With that, I bribed my kids and we made our first, I didn't even have a TikTok account. I think I made my wife download a TikTok account or set up a TikTok account, and we made a TikTok where like I was COVID and I flipped the switch and one of my kids was brick and mortar, and then the light went out and then my kid was e-commerce. And that was the beginning, and it was fun, and it was something we could do because we were stuck in the house. We had a great time, and the response was phenomenal. Believe it, I think I woke up the next day and checked my account, and it was a weekend, and it was on LinkedIn, and it was blowing up. Thousands and thousands of views, like hundreds of likes. And I think a light bulb went off for me. Hey, wait a minute, this could be an avenue, right, for me to replace some of this marketing, some of this business development.
It's fascinating for a number of reasons. I think what's really interesting to me is that it reminds us that the people who are interested in our content aren't necessarily, to your point, the general counsels who are behind 3 monitors with their desktop computer and really interested in some antitrust reading, and they're going to find your client alert and they're going to just dig into all 1,500 words and read every footnote. Sometimes they're flipping through their phones on a weekend. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on TikTok. And even though they're not looking in that moment to learn business information, they still will always stop to be entertained. And that's what's really, I think, a key point for attorneys and really any professionals, but especially attorneys, that people will always want to be entertained, even if it is regarding some topic that is just off the beaten path, and let's call it a legal topic that's very in the weeds. If you can present the idea in an entertaining manner, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's arcane law. It doesn't matter if it's some weird maritime law issue that 3 shippers will have in all of 2022. If you can make it interesting, you're going to get views, you're going to get likes, and you don't know, just like you don't know the person you talk to at your kid's Little League game or your kid's dance recital, who that person knows. You don't know who the people are that are watching your videos, reading your LinkedIn posts. They don't have to call you that day and say, Murphy, I am a head of sales at XYZ and you're the man for me. They could just simply be following you from afar and know of you. And when they are asked if they know someone who could do what you do, that's when it really pays, because they can refer you. I am also fascinated by the fact that you are not just a solo attorney who is doing criminal defense, or you're one of 2 partners, you're a named partner at a personal injury firm. You are a partner at one of the largest law firms in the world. What was the reaction of your colleagues once your TikTok videos started, dare we say, blowing up?
Yeah, great question, Wayne. It was mixed is the honest answer, right? I think there were a lot of people who were very supportive, thought it was very creative, thought it was exciting, thought it was just a really good play, especially for my niche and my target audience. I do think it's a big law firm, as you said. There were also people who I think questioned, and maybe still to this day, right, question, hey, is this an image we want to portray, that Murphy's making videos, changing his bow tie or with his kids or whatever he's doing, using TikTok to make these LinkedIn videos. But I think over time, our ROI also helps as the clients keep coming in. I think I did have a couple conversations internally on just the substance and what they are, and just establishing just some guidelines on not going too far, not pushing things. And I think that we've reached a very nice place on, I know what the firm is okay with, and probably some stuff
Yeah, I mean,
the
look,
firm wouldn't be
you
okay
are
with.
not hiring models and painting like a resale price maintenance on their stomachs and doing some kind of ridiculous thing. You're doing what I think is one of the most difficult things lawyers can do, which is in the course of our marketing and business development efforts, you are distilling down very complex topics in a way that's easily digested by people who are flipping through their phone. And you're making it, I think, even more importantly, you're making it clear how these complex issues relate to their everyday lives and their everyday business issues. And I just think it is a noble task to not only market yourself, but to stick your neck out there where you are the face and you are literally on video. You could write for Law 360, you could write for industry trade publications and still market yourself. That is the safe, established way. And for some practice areas, that is the way to build your book of business. And you would never have anyone pull you aside and talk to you about the content of those blog posts or those client alerts or articles, because we know what they're going to be. But you're taking a risk with the TikTok videos and the social media videos, which I think is where you have to go because you're a younger partner. And the idea that the partners who are 10 or 20 years ahead of you, that the things that worked for them are still going to work for you, I'm not sure that's the case. Just look no further than conferences, right? We are now in an era where the trade show conference might never be the same, at least in terms of there being an online component. And the people that you used to want to go see, the clients from Germany or the UK, who you knew for sure were flying into Las Vegas, they might not anymore, or they might not do it as often. And you have to respond to that change, and you have to be prepared, I think, to pivot. And to me, you're doing the perfect pivot, which is you're used to being in person where people can get a sense of your personality, of your warmth, of your ability to just to chat them up. You can't do that if they're not around you, but you can convey that warmth and convey your social ability through video, right? Someone can watch your video for 5 seconds and get a sense of who you are. And I think you're also not afraid to not take yourself so seriously. And that is a big deal, because we all know the partners who wouldn't dare be caught doing something that would shift the perception from them being esteemed, white shoe lawyer. But I don't think clients really care how prominent someone comes across, especially if your clients aren't just general counsels. They are CEOs, they're sales managers, they are people who have hustled to get where they are. They want some personality.
Yeah, Wayne, I think that's right. Look, it's definitely been driven by the COVID world, but I don't see it changing. It's interesting the way that it is all played out, but I think you raised some good points, and I'm flattered, and thank you for the compliments on it. It's been a lot of fun too. It really has. It allows me to show how passionate I am about what I do. But to your point earlier, with the law review article or the long article, I see it now, even like gaining a following. I'll post a client alert, which I think is pretty good and informative, and I'll get like 1,000 views and 50 likes. And then I post a video, or God forbid, I post a video with my kids because they blow up even more. I'll get like 10,000 views and hundreds of likes. But it's that balance too of working in some value, right? Like, some, not every video has a ton of substance, but some do. Or as you said, distilling it down. Before I went to law school, I actually taught 5th grade for 2 years in St. Louis, Missouri. And my law school essay was about, hey, I think being an attorney is not a ton different than being a teacher. Being a teacher, yeah, you take something like long division and distill it down to a kid. When you have a jury trial, you take a Sherman Act concept or an antitrust concept and you distill it down to a jury, or a lot of times to judges who aren't dealing with this statute every day like you are. That is the at least the point. And I think when the videos get in front of the right audiences, they get it. Now, look, there's other people, like I have friends who see them and like, that's funny, but I have no idea like what that really means. because they're not in the industry, but it's not really meant for them, right? It's meant, for the audience I'm trying to get it in front of.
Well, and that's another really fascinating point, which is that when you use language, when you use jargon that only people that you want to serve know, then you are further enmeshing yourself in that club. And I have a blog post, I'll put in the show links in a video about this, where I think that attorneys should use jargon in any of their marketing, but not legal jargon. It should be jargon from the industry that they serve, because that clues potential clients and current clients into the fact that you are well aware of what goes on in their business, well aware of the issues that they see, because you are talking literally in their language. So the fact that other people might just laugh or they smile because they see your kids in the video and they just keep on scrolling, but the people who are in the position to hire you, or at least refer you to someone who could hire you, them hearing those words and seeing those issues, I think is as persuasive as you demonstrating knowledge regarding a recent Second Circuit or Ninth Circuit opinion that might impact your client's U.S. operations, because you're connecting with them in a level that probably you're not going to by simply writing.
Well, and it's funny, Wayne, I even sometimes use incorrect legal terms because I know that's what clients use. And I won't get into the details of it, but everyone in the US always wants to call a pricing policy a MAP policy. But in reality, what most of them are looking for or using are unilateral policies. And that's always a conversation that we have with them from the legal perspective. But like sometimes I even hashtag, because it's a play on words, let's map out a policy. And technically the first conversation we have is, well, it's really not a MAP policy. But I use that because that's the hook. Any business person who thinks about pricing policies, always the first thing they want to say is it's a MAP policy, but it's really a unilateral policy. So, it is interesting, but that's what gets the attention. And that's, the interesting part about my practice is it's really a lot of law, but it's also a lot of business, right? Like I literally have clients calling me and saying, hey, what promotion should we run next week? It's like, I don't know, but they know that I work with a whole bunch of manufacturers, a whole bunch of different things.
How do you get the inspiration for topics? What do you have this long note on your phone or a legal pad you keep by your bed? What's your process from inspiration to creation?
Yeah, so it's hard, to be honest with you, because I work all the time. I don't have a lot of free time. I do all of that on my own. I do occasionally, if an idea pops into my head, I'll take a note. But I honestly, the way I get it done is if an idea gets in my head, I have to do it like in a day or two, or it's going to get lost. That's just the truth. So I try to prioritize it. I will say my TikTok skills are not great, but they've gotten a lot better. Some of those early videos took forever because I barely knew how to operate it. That's been better, at least from a time perspective. I do have a couple, like I have one idea that's a bit of an undertaking that I've had written down, and I just need to find the time and figure out exactly how to do it. But a lot, it's I see something, whether it's I'll see like a TikTok trend, and I think like, how can this be applicable to something I do? And then I try to turn it into that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I would like to be more consistent. Like I don't have rules. I don't every month I have to post or every 2 weeks. I don't know. I guess if I look back, I feel like I do it in bunches where I might have 2 or 3 videos over a month and then maybe nothing for 2 or 3 months and then 2 or 3 more. And I don't know. I guess I haven't really sat back and thought about it. It also depends on my schedule, like how busy I am. Do I have the time to do it? Am I traveling, as I'm starting to travel a little more now? I probably could have a better systematic approach, but what I'm doing seems to work for now, and then we'll see where it goes.
There's inspiration everywhere for marketing and BD. I joke with my clients that today's client conversation is tomorrow's blog post, because just listen, right? Your client has a question that you can think about, and you're going to realize that probably other clients have that same issue, and you can obviously answer the question in a way that's not going to get into attorney-client privilege. It's not going to get into any confidential information, but it provides value, and it's not providing legal advice. It's providing educational value about the issues. And sometimes you did something, you having a complex client issue that you help navigate. Yes, sometimes lawyers want to write a press release about the result, but the process that you went through to get there is actually a better piece of content. That's an article, that's a video, that's a podcast episode, because again, you're walking clients through how you helped other clients, but in a way it's informative. 5 ways that you resolved a recent, price maintenance issue, whatever it might be. That is interesting to clients who have those problems.
Well, and Wayne, to that point, you actually inspired me on one of those. I did a client alert not too long ago on paid search and Google AdWords, and I think I saw one of your posts, and I had 2 or 3 clients ask me the same issue in a 2-week period. Me and an associate, we wrote a memo on it and we handled each of them. And then I said, hey, let's turn that into an alert. We did the work. It's generic information. Obviously, we took out the client specific aspects of it and we turned it into an alert. And it's so you get a little extra bang for your buck on it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you spent all that time on the memo. You might as well strip it off a little bit from the client specifics. And with a little bit of time, you got right two for the price of one. I want to ask you about 2 more questions. I'm curious, what would you advise law firms and law firm marketing departments about handling their attorneys' social media marketing? Because I know almost every law firm has a social media account, and obviously they don't want their attorneys going on social media and doing something that makes the firm look bad, makes the attorney look bad, makes the legal profession look bad. I want to end with the advice you would give attorneys who are thinking about following your footsteps with social media and videos in particular, but a step before that, what would you advise in-house marketing departments about their attorneys' social media efforts?
Yeah, look, it's a tough question. What I would advise law firms is, especially on the partner level, right? If you have somebody who's a partner at your firm, you have to trust them and you have to trust their judgment. And if you don't, they probably shouldn't be a partner at your law firm. I think being overly restrictive on what people doing is not a good approach, or you're just stifling, right, innovation in the market and trends that people are going. Again, I've been very lucky. I've overall have been supported at my firm in what I do. In fact, I was asked to speak to another of our offices on social media, business development, and marketing. So look, Wayne, as you know, law firms move very slow with basically anything. But if somebody's out there causing problems or doing inappropriate things, obviously that needs to be reined in and that needs to be dealt with. I think the world is changing, right? The world is moving. And I think for law firms that really want to be out there ahead of that, you have to trust your people, your partners.
And it's coming. So what's your advice for attorneys who are on the fence or who say, well, gee, I have this background. I'm at a big law firm. My clients are going to think differently of me, or my colleagues will think differently of me. What's your advice for them?
I think it's obviously person specific because one, whatever you do, you have to be comfortable doing. You have to be authentic. It can't be fake, or it's going to flop. It's not going to be successful. But honestly, if you're comfortable doing it, whatever your thing might be, I say push the limits, right? Like I say, do it. Look, if you go to law firms and ask for permission a lot, it's going to be a problem. So as long as you're using your judgment, being reasonable, being rational, I sometimes take the approach, maybe you ask for forgiveness and not permission. As long as you're thinking it through, or if you have a colleague that you trust, bounce it off of them. I've done that before. Hey, I'm thinking about posting this. You think this is going to be problematic? But push the limits, get out there, get out ahead of the curve, and don't be afraid to do it.
I would volunteer that the killer way to get approval is to go to whomever you have to go to with a conflicts check. And when they ask you what's it for, you say, oh, it's a new client I got based on my viral TikTok video. And then I think that's the perfect time to make sure they're okay with it. When they see the scope of the matter and they realize that this is going to be a 6-figure project, yeah, all of a sudden they might be a little bit more comfortable with your TikTok and other social media efforts. Mike, I really appreciate you joining me. It's been a blast hearing about your business development and your marketing expertise and the work you're doing for your clients. How can people check you out on social media, contact you if they want to learn more about what you do, both on the legal side and the marketing BD side?
Sure. So LinkedIn account, it's just Michael Murphy, K&L Gates. Email michael.r.murphy@klgates.com. And I appreciate it, Wayne. This has been a lot of fun.
Okay, Mike, thanks so much. And I guess the next one to visit the other person's city owes the other person a beer. So we'll end on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Legally Contented. Thanks so much for tuning in. Check out the episode show notes for more information about our guests and for links to resources that we discussed during the episode. We'd appreciate your feedback and recommendations for future guests. Email us at hello@legallycontented.com, hello@legallycontented.com. We would appreciate if you told your colleagues about this podcast, if you subscribe to the podcast and urge them to subscribe as well. And while you're at it, maybe you could even rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast player. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in to Legally Contented.